Let me tell you Rainman Ray's story. I've got a house full of kids right now. St. Patty's party. We're going to have to go to the bathroom for this one. I apologize for the lack of scenery. These kids are running all over the place. At 13 years old, Ray's parents split and he moved out to Kansas City and lived there for a while. 16, 17 years old. Left his mom, him and his mom didn't get along, and they moved to Atlanta, Georgia with his grandparents. The moving around, Ray got behind in school and was able to do some extra classes, attending night school and stuff like that to get caught up. He went from a 2.3 to a 3.6 GPA his junior year. Ray started dating this girl from the next town over that she worked at a hair salon. And he doubted that the situation was going to work with him being broke and having no money. He needed employment. So before graduation, important time in your life's about to get started, you're about to go off to college and everything else. You meet somebody and it tizzies everything up, It's that could change your whole life. So he said one morning he woke up, he had a flat tire, took it to a local tire shop, and it said on the door, career opportunities inside. And while he was waiting for his tire to get fixed, he went and talked to the manager. He's pretty much hired on the spot. And, just pending a drug test kind of thing. So that's the initial start on Ray's basically life performance choices, getting into the mechanical side of things, the technician, fixing, whatever handy side of things at that point with automotive. Although this is kind of like his first time being around his own employment of working in a shop. His family had always kind of been around that stuff. They owned a truck shop and stuff, so he wasn't completely green to tools in general, but working on his own in a shop somewhere, trying to get his life started, this was all new. So there was, like a day of training and then a day of shadowing somebody, or like a week of shadowing somebody, and then all of a sudden he just was turned out on his own. Yeah, zero real world experience when it came to working on vehicles by himself, but within a week-ish, a couple weeks, already turned out on his own as a greenhorn. He told me the first few months of working at this shop was a little rough because the guys were flat rate. So they didn't take a lot of time to invest in training him. So a lot of the stuff he had to learn on his own. Picking up manuals, looking at the way small block Chevys were built, 12-volt wiring and audio systems. A lot of the stuff he had to learn by picking up books and reading it because there just wasn't anybody there to teach it. Back in the day, the old 89 S10 was his thing, because back then it was all about dropped, mini trucks and stuff like that. So that's what he had, was an 89 S10, and all the extra money that he would make would go towards building this truck. That was kind of the thing back then. So Ray, being the person that he is and the type of mentality and drive that you guys see him pushing for, he wanted better than what he had. He didn't want to be just the tire and lube guy. So after having some months of experience, he wanted to move up. He wanted to move into a more serious position so he could get paid more money. But all the good jobs end up going to the techs. Ends up starving the newer techs out, and it just may not have been a good fit, right? So one day, Ray's doing an oil change, ends up leaving the gun inside the fill hole, and goes to crank the engine over, and it went to shit at that point. I'm assuming motor made all kinds of noise. It was bad. So he gets out of the car and he goes to one of the lead techs and the service manager, and he's like, hey, this is kind of what I did. I left the gun inside and I just tried to start the vehicle without pulling the gun out of the fill hole. And they were like, yeah, the cam lobe caught the gun, stopping the cam from spinning, and it snapped the timing chain on this Volvo. And yeah, it's going to be a costly repair now. And he said they immediately sent me for a drug test, and they had me take a few days off. After coming back, I was rearranging the tire room and doing this really stressful, tedious work. But at that point, I realized there was no future there. I was always going to be that guy, and I wasn't going to be able to recover from something like that. So I went and interviewed at NTB. It was owned by Sears at the time. While working for NTB, he learned a lot. More on brakes, more on doing the general maintenance stuff, the more, what do you call it, moderate duty repairs and stuff that needed to be done. And atmosphere was a little bit better. Techs were a little bit nicer. Not anything to brag about. Pay was a little bit better. But after 18 months of doing that and kind of getting his feet wet and learning more about the job, a new corporation came in and bought NTB out that was owned by Sears, TBC. And it affected the company negatively because they were changing everything. Pay decreased, people's financial situation got worse, and there was a mass exodus from NTB, or TBC owned NTB at the time. Ray went from NTB to a independent shop, and he was the alignment guy. And it wasn't just like your basic tow and go, tow and blow, blow and tow, whatever kind of thing, It was the extensive, needs to be freaking perfect, spot on, every single thing done absolutely correctly by the book. And that was kind of short-lived from what I understand. And he ended up moving to Detroit. Because his girlfriend came up here and her parents had something to do with, I don't know if it was Ford or something like that, is what he was explaining to me. And he chased her. Naturally, if you love somebody, you care about somebody, or you're just young and dumb, that's what you do. He moved up to Detroit and worked for Firestone. And he wasn't the alignment specialist anymore, so he felt like his position in general just kind of went, he took a step down instead of staying where he was and trying to go up. But at least he got to learn about rust, he said. He said it's, moving up north taught me about rust. That's for sure. So it's a consequence of living up here in the Salt Belt is you have to deal with rust no matter what, unless you're one of those preventative maintenance guys that spray in your car once or twice a year with undercoating, and I mean oil undercoating, not rubberized undercoating. And that's the only way to prevent it up here, but unfortunately everybody has to deal with it here. After spending some time in Detroit working at Firestone there, things between him and his girlfriend didn't quite seem to go the way you would plan for things to go. So Ray pulled up stakes, went out to Kansas City again, and by that time he's about 23 years old. Spent another year there, so he did a winter in Detroit and then a winter in Kansas City, and he said he'd had enough of that shit. He's tired of the winters up here and stuff, so he wanted to go back to Florida. So he said it was kind of like a fresh start to me. It was a new path that I was possibly going to take in my life, and I wasn't sure that it was necessarily going to be automotive. So sold everything that I had tool-wise, jumped in my S10, and I headed out to Florida. After making his way out to Florida, he found a job as a cook, chef, whatever you want to call it, at a seafood restaurant, and worked there for a few years. And he only lived a few blocks down from the restaurant. And he said it was a few years of working and boating and fishing and just, a good time. But he ended up meeting another lady, and things kind of kicked off pretty quick. Well, now we need to change again, right? Not making enough money. He takes a job at a Midas and said it was close enough to just take a bus and just get off. Didn't need to drive or anything like that. And he showed up to work with cardboard boxes, tools in cardboard boxes that were taped up. Didn't have very much. Working off of one of the table benches. And they kind of laughed at him and stuff like that. But because of his work ethic and him being no slouch, he outworked everybody in the shop. they didn't have the same work ethic as him. And then after a year, he was in the full swing of things and up and going, just like he was before. Lo and behold, the store he was working at ended up selling to a franchisee that wanted to make some changes. In the instance of making the changes, the manager was supposed to go and the assistant manager was supposed to go or something like that, and the franchisee that was taking over was going to assume those roles. So the manager, the assistant manager, whatever it was, and Ray all kind of came together. Some of the employees came together. They had been working together. They built a good team, and they came up with their own resources, and they ended up buying a Midas up the road together. After about 6 months of being in a new location, there was some issues because they were actually going to come through there and they were going to run a road through that would block off the road to his shop or something like that, and it would cause business to just tank. And corporate actually bought the Midas back from them because they didn't disclose that there was going to be major construction there that would almost make the business fail. So they all kind of went on about their way, and what ended up happening is Ray took a job at the Chevy dealership. His focus was trying to take any type of Chevy training, any type of Chevy module, and learn as much as he could and become certified with the Chevy products, as he was striving to become better and better and better, and that was still the focus even when going to GM. And that's what he did. He took every module and every test that was available that he could possibly take. But corporate politics come in and everything else, and ended up having to leave the Chevy dealer again. He actually ended up moving to another NTB after that, and they gave him a pay raise. They gave him a foreman title, and him and the manager would travel around to the different locations that were failing and try to fix the problems that were going on. Managers that would quit or places that were failing, it was their job to go in and look at everything and kind of change the way it was operating to make it better, more efficient, and make it actually successful. After riding the train of moving from store to store to store to store with his manager for a few years, fixing problems and revamping the way things were actually working, a position came up in Hawaii, and he was talking to his significant other at the time, and this is like 2015, and he thought, maybe it would be a good move, maybe not. And then I don't know if it was fiance at the time or just girlfriend, decided why not just go with it, just do it. And through the process of trying to get ready to move and get ready to move out to Hawaii, he found out that they were going to have a child. And he said it took him about 8 months to move from Florida to Hawaii completely. It's a long time. After moving out to Hawaii, he became a store manager at one of the facilities. And they lived there through 2015, 2016. 2016, his daughter had a medical condition where they said her esophagus wasn't attached to her stomach. But Hawaii has one of the leading specialists for that type of situation with children, and luckily he was able to get it taken care of and her to recover from that. After living out there for, I don't know, year and a half, he decided to cut it short and come back because all the family and stuff for his girlfriend was back in Florida. So they had some money put away. They decided to go ahead and buy a house, and they moved back to Florida, seeing as that's where all the family was. So after moving back to Florida, he started working for an independent shop again, but even though work seemed to be going okay, the owner's health of the company started failing, and at the same time, kind of like simultaneously, Ray ended up starting his own landscaping and power washing business that seemed to be doing pretty well for itself. Moving into the Buick GMC Subaru facility, and him and the technician that was his B-Tech that was helping him, turning out 70 to 90 hours a week, things started to get a little hectic there. It came time for them to start looking at, where numbers could be changed or who they could put the blame on for failure. Well, it was easy to blame his department. Even though it wasn't his fault and they were producing, that's where the attack started. That's where the focus was pushed. But really, there was nobody there to help Ray. So Ray gets called into the office one day at work by his lower managers and they had a YouTube video of his pulled up on the channel. They didn't realize that for the last couple months he had been recording YouTube videos, and they told him to stop. And they pretty much realized that they didn't have a leg to stand on when he was resilient about it. He said, I went back to my office and I wrote them an email kind of explaining the situation on why. This is recorded evidence as to the quality of my work and stuff. So there's no way that you can actually come down on me for something and accuse me of something that's actually not going on. They were petty about some stuff, like didn't like where he was actually zip tying his phone to a jack stand to record his videos and things like that. It seemed like they were reaching, and they were trying to look for somebody to do wrong or blame or whatever it may be. Needless to say, he was right in his way of pushing back. So after Ray getting in trouble for the YouTube videos per se, and then going back to his shop, he kind of, his part of the shop, he kind of figured out that he could circumvent the system a little bit, kind of lay low, only make a few videos a month, kind of stay off the radar and stuff like that. But there was like a bunch of policy changes that were supposed to come down to where they were trying to implement workers to work 6 days a week. Well, the only people that were really there to account for the workers in the service side was Ray and his B-Tech, and they were already working and exhausting themselves as it is. So when you take somebody that's been working and frustrated for that long, and they're doing everything that they can to keep up with the work, and they can't keep up with the work because there's nobody else working there per se. They can or they can't, it's irrelevant, but they're already working, you know, producing 70 to 90 hours a week between the two of them. You got a guy that's a senior guy and seasoned, and he's working with a guy that's coming up learning. That's good numbers at the end of the week. And what ended up happening is they wanted to come up with, you know, like handwritten consent that you're going to work 6 days a week. And when he went and sat down with his managers, they wanted to implement this for them, and he said, no, I'm not going to do it. I already work 3 Saturdays a month anyway, and I come in 5 hours on my own, but when I'm in town, I do my 5 hours of work, do my shopping and stuff, and then I turn around and I head back to you know, his house after his 5 hours on Saturday. But you're not going to force me to come in on a Saturday and say that, you know, I have to work. And he said the conversation was going good. I mean, and he said I explained to them to that work life and balance of home life and how that has to be there, because it's not healthy for somebody to not have that. And they pretty much acted like they weren't buying it. In the middle of the meeting, they just kind of got up, stepped off into another room, was blocking the glass so he couldn't see through it, and they were in there talking. So he said, I got up and I walked over to my toolboxes and stuff like that over in the area where I work, and I started packing my stuff up. And they came in there, wanted me to fill out some paperwork or sign the paperwork to work 6 days a week, and I told them no. And they said, well, no, you have to sign the paperwork. Your name's not out on the front of the building. And he said, well, you can't force me to sign the paperwork because I don't work here anymore. And he said, I left, went and got my trailer, came back a few hours later, pick up my toolboxes, my roll cards, my shelves, everything, and they wanted to pull that whole typical shop thing, which they've done it to me before too. Well, get off the property. They want to try to hold your tools hostage and say that you know, you have to have the police come escort you and everything. No, give them my shit. You know, I'm not gonna sit here and we're not gonna play these games. So he loaded up his stuff. The dealership kind of found out, the rest of the employees found out about what was going on, and you know, people were upset about it. I'm sure people were upset about it, but when you have management start to get greedy like that, sometimes employees have to push back, and that's exactly what happened. He pushed back and said, no, I'm not gonna be your you know what, in this situation. We already work our butt off, and you're not going to work us any more than what you've been working us. So that's what you want to do, you know. And he ended up leaving, so it was for the better. You know, it's making moves in your life, and that's what it was exactly coming down to. So on to where Ray's working now. They have, if I'm understanding correctly, it's 8 states where this small chain is. I don't know if it's 8 shops in one state or 8 states with that make up this little chain. It's like a mom and pop chain, I guess you could call it, where they actually take care of them. They understand the integrity, work life, work balance,
home life and everything has to play into a factor of an employee's health, and they don't force people to do anything, you know, crazy or outlandish. It's all about employee health, customer service, the integrity of people doing business with a business at the end of the day. And he's very happy and pleased with where he's at now. It's like finally the right job came along. It's a good fit for him, and it seems to work out because he's doing very, very well on YouTube. Me and him started to talk to each other about the time when he was leaving the Buick GMC Subaru dealership, because I remember that video popping up with him leaving, and I'm kind of like in the background cheering, hell yeah, leave that place, leave it, you know. Like I've had to do the same thing at a dealership just because of how the politics are. He's 100% right, 1000% right on the politics when it comes to corporation-owned dealerships and dealer groups and stuff like that. It is sometimes just ruthless and dirty, and it can devastate and change somebody's life based on how the group or the corporation is run. It's disgusting sometimes, and he made the right call. He's happy now. He's doing good. That's your boy Ray. That's Ray in a nutshell. I know none of you guys have ever heard anything about him, but here's the best I can do. You know, it's the best I can do right now, and you know, I've been talking to Ray for a couple years now, and he's been doing very well for himself, and I'm happy for him. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It was nothing fancy. It was just story time with Rich, and telling you about one of your favorite YouTubers. Ray's not a person that likes to gloat about himself, or he doesn't puff his chest up about things that he's accomplished or anything like that. Ray has worked on heavy duty stuff. He's worked on, you know, anything that you can pretty much name, he's worked on. He not just automotive stuff. He's been in the he's worked in some of the heavy duty stuff in the field as well. Not necessarily in the heavy duty field, but he has experience working on that stuff as well. So he's not just your car guy. He's got a little bit of input when it comes to anything, and he's been around for a little bit now, and he's going to continue to grow and learn. And I'm going to try to be there for him to help him out anytime he needs me or forward advice or anything like that. And I hope he's there for me. I know he will be anytime I need him and his expertise. And that's just how human beings should help each other and grow. And he's definitely a people person. He's all about customer service and customer loyalty. At the end of the day, it's what it boils down to. No matter how good you are, if you don't have a customer base, how good you are doesn't matter. You have to be able to use that to service humanity, to service people in general. And that's exactly what he does. He's just a good dude. So that's it. Farewell, and have a great Sunday.